All right, so here we go again. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe, an hour of interviews, music, and camaraderie. I'm Ryan, and I'll be your host along this crazy adventure through the land of the wheel fiddle. So strap in, and let's see what's cranking in the Hurdy Gurdy community today. I'm here again with Sergio Gonzalez.
Hello everybody.
Yes. And today we're going to be talking about some interesting things that you put forth on the Hurdy Gurdy community, about adjustments, about what it means to be a beginner and how to get into that. But before we do, we're going to kick it off with Efren Lopez and his recording of La Kopanitsa. So let's hear how that goes.
Nice.
All right, so that was Efren Lopez's La Kopanitsa, but I believe that's a traditional tune, though, so that's not necessarily his composition, correct?
Indeed. Kopanitsa is like saying tango, for example, or waltz. It's a traditional dance I think it's from Bulgaria, if I'm not mistaken. And it's traditional, 100%. Mm-hmm.
It's a long tune, though. I mean, it's in a weird time signature. There's multiple parts.
Yes, it has quite a lot of different parts, but and yes, of course, it's an 11/8, and this is maybe something interesting to talk about for a minute or so.
Yeah.
Because those odd. I'm doing this thing again.
Air quotes.
Air quotes, yes. Because I don't find them odd at all. It's just a different tradition. So, and I'm very familiar with them. Those odd time signatures, or do you call it time signature or time? How do you call it?
Time signature. Yeah.
Time signature. Yes.
Yes.
You would call odd time signatures to fives, maybe not six, but 5, 7, 9, 11, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And if you are starting out with this kind of odd time signatures, it's interesting because it's very, very simple if you think it slow.
Yeah.
So let me explain a little bit. For example, let's not start with the 11. Okay, we will end with the 11 eventually, okay. But let's start with something simpler. In Spanish, we call them amalgamas. I think there's an English word that you use it a lot, but I think it exists. Amalgamation, right?
Amalgamation, yes.
Amalgamation. Right. It's can you can you describe that word? What does that mean?
Well, amalgamation is like a combination of different things, putting something together. Yeah,
100%. And this is the combination of measures that go in 2 and measures that go in 3. So it's a combination of 2s and 3s.
Okay.
For example, let's talk about the 5. Well, first of all, you know that the 2 has and the 3 has a specific accentuation. Mm-hmm. It has like strong beats and also weak beats.
Right.
For example, the 2s are 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So strong, weak, and the 3s are like a waltz, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah?
Yes.
Strong, weak, etc. So then, when we combine those accentuations on the amalgamation of bars, we get the odd, air quotes again, the odd time signatures. For example, a 5 would be, maybe this is a little bit dense, but okay, it's very easy, I promise. A 5 would be a combination of 1, 2 and 1, 3. So it would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, etc.
Yes.
So combining those measures, you can get different 5s, different 7s, 9s, depending on where you put the 2 and where you put the 3.
Right.
And this changes a lot depending on the tradition you are working on, mm-hmm. Depending on the country, for example. So, for example, Ryan, how would you do a 9? Or no, a 7? How would you do a 7?
A 7? Well, the way I would do it, because there's a tune I was just learning, I would do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Like so.
Exactly. 100%.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. So then let's move to the Kopanitsa and let's try to count it. now we heard the tune, but maybe it was challenging for you to find the 1. You know, sometimes like, oh my God, where is the 1 here?
Yes.
And this is a bit more challenging, but it's like 1, 2. Let me count. 1 second. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, tac. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Taka, 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 taka. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Tak, 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 tak. It's interesting because if you hear well, we just heard it, the Kopanitsa, this Kopanitsa, and almost all the Kopanitsas, by the way, they almost always have this ending phrase, taka taka ta 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 ta, taka taka ta 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 ta, that is marking a lot the accents on the of the 11. Sorry, I'm a freak.
No, I think this is good. This is good for people to know, because a lot of hurdy-gurdy music I've run across has been in time signatures other than 4/4 or 3/4.
Exactly.
So.
Especially if you like, as I do, Middle East kind of vibe, or Eastern Europe also. They use a lot of amalgamas. But as you can see, it's easy. So summarizing, let's count the 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. A 7. 2 2s, 1 3. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. Be careful not to do, if you guys are counting on the threes. Some people, some of my students, for example, have this thing of trying to make a triplet. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. And this is not a 7.
Right.
It's very important to have. It could be, yes. So it's exactly, yes. It's very important to count the eighth notes like even. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. Especially if you go to this the east of Europe, they don't teach it like this. They don't teach it counting. They say short long. They say it's a combination of short measures and long measures. So they would teach you short short long, short short long, short short long. This for the 7.
Yes.
For example, for the 11, short short long, short 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 long, short short. I know it sounds crazy, I know, but if you practice, it's going to be easy, really.
Well, with the Kopanitsa, so what you're saying is it's 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2, right?
Bravo, yes.
Okay. Well, then before we move on from that, I just started trying to learn the tune. Since I'm not very good with French, it's LE space FIL. And that's,
I don't know it, sorry.
well, that's in 3/8. So what's 3/8?
3/8. Okay. This is also interesting for beginners. Like when you see 4/4, 3/8, 2/2, what does it mean, right?
Right.
It's easy. It's easy for, especially for English speakers, because you call the figures like quarter note, half note, eighth note, 16th note. In other languages, it gets a bit more challenging because we have special names for each one of the figures. Like we call in Spanish, for example, in French, it's very similar also. We call the half note a white note. Mm-hmm. The quarter, we call it a black note. The eighth note, we call it corchea or croche in French, etc. So it's a bit more difficult for us, but for English speakers, it's easy. So. Sorry, it's always the same with me. Sorry, I talk too much. So you said 3/4, right?
3/8.
3/8.
Yes.
3/8 means 3/8 notes on a bar.
Per bar. Okay.
Per bar. Exactly.
So it's like half a jig.
Half a jig, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So if you see a 4/4, it's 4 quarter notes per bar.
Okay.
You see 11/8, 11/8 notes per bar, etc., etc., etc.
I see. Okay.
So the 2 is the half note, the 4 is the quarter note, the 8 is the eighth note, and the 16, 32, blah, 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 blah.
Gotcha. Well, all right. Well, that helped me a lot. So hopefully it helps someone else too. So there are a lot of these Kopanitsas, though. I mean, it's not just.
Yes.
I know I sound silly, but I'm new to this kind of music. Mm-hmm. So one other question is, are they all long like that? Meaning, I don't remember. I got the sheet music once, and I thought it had like 9 or 10 different parts. Do they all have a lot of parts?
Not really. Like some of them, they do, but it's very common to merge different Kopanitsas in one, you know, or stealing one phrase from this other Kopanitsa and put it in yours. So this is maybe one of the reasons of some of them being like quite long, but others are not that long, not that many parts, maybe 4 parts, 3 parts.
Right. And how do you?
Like 9.
Is it just because you're used to this kind of music, or is there a way that you how do you memorize that well? I mean, in Irish music, which I like to play, the most I've gone is maybe 5 different parts in a tune. But when they get really long, how do you just suck it up and try to memorize it, or is there any kind of keys to that?
I don't know. So the first thing you could do is just read it.
Okay.
If you know how to read and you have the score. Mostly what I do is I read the first bar and then it comes to my mind. So maybe I don't really know. If you tell me, Sergio, sing me the 4th part of Efren's Kopanitsa, I'm like, I don't know. But maybe if I am playing it, I can I can do it. So you have to get familiar with these tunes, like listening, playing, studying, and eventually when you are familiar with each one of the phrases, then just reading the first notes help a lot. Like it gets you into it, you go directly to what you are familiar with. Maybe you don't know the structure that well, but
so it just takes time and just listening to it a lot.
Yes, of course. And don't be afraid, because sonatas are much longer than Kopanitsas.
Got it.
Right?
Good. Was there anything else you'd want to say about that tune in particular before we move on to our questions?
That one, of course, yes. Have a look at me. If I remember clearly, I think Blousabella recorded another Kopanitsa. And it was pretty nice. Oh, by the way, that one that Blousabella recorded, it's also recorded by a friend on his old band, Lam de Foc. Do you know them?
No, you mentioned them last time. Can you spell out exactly what you're saying? Because I tried to look it up and I couldn't find it.
Yes, because it's in Catalan. So, Lam de Foc, it's a weird name actually, Efren. If you're listening this, it's like the hook of fire.
The hook of fire, okay.
Yes, I don't know why they named it like that. Maybe it was something by Mara Aranda, the singer, like something like I don't know. Again, it's like modern art, something that you don't really understand why.
But how do you spell it? How do you spell it so I can type it in?
Well, I'm very bad spelling, so I will write it to you.
You write
and
then,
and then you will write it down on the box.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Kopanitsa. Yes.
All right. Good. Well, a lot of the questions that came from the Hurdy Gurdy community for this podcast in particular really centered around, I think, what people need to know as a beginner. Last podcast we talked about just how to find a good Hurdy Gurdy and what's the process in getting one built. But this one, let me get out my notes here because I tried to write them all down. And no, I don't want to send you an email. Here we go. Okay, so the first question that comes up is from Crystal Piper, and she was asking, what about the signs and sounds of a poorly constructed Gurdy? When us newbies first come in, we get the idea that we can make all these sounds we might hear in a demo, but a bad instrument's not going to do that. So what reveals a poor design? Scratches, squeaks, any thoughts on that?
Okay, let me I talk too much, I warn you. Let me tell you a story.
Okay. Yes. I'll sit back and drink my tea.
Yes, of course. Like 12 years ago, I went to India, okay? Because I wanted to learn the sitar, right? But the thing is, I thought I knew how a sitar was supposed to sound, but I did not know it that time. So I went there and I buy a quite expensive sitar for India. It was like 600 euros, $700 or something. And I start trying to learn with it, and it's very difficult. I could not bend the strings as I was supposed to do. It sounded okay to me, but it was very difficult to play. And then I spent like 2 months trying to play with that until I found a teacher. And the teacher lent me his instrument and said, okay, try this. And magically, I learned how a sitar was supposed to sound. And I realized at that point that my sitar sounded more or less like a banjo. So I'm not saying banjos sound bad, okay? But you know, like this clang, 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 this kind of thing. And the sitar was supposed to sound like really resonant, really deep, with a lot of sympathetic strings going on, you know? And but you know, I was a noob. I couldn't tell the difference. And I think this happens quite a lot on the Hurdy Gurdy world. The same thing that happened to me with the sitar, it happens a lot to beginners. Like you listen to a Hurdy Gurdy or a Hurdy Gurdy shape object, and as a beginner, you don't really know how a Hurdy Gurdy is supposed to sound. You only know it's something that has a wheel and keys and it sounds, you know. Right. But you're not familiar with the good sound of a Hurdy Gurdy. And also the other thing, I think we talked about this the other day, is that I'm not saying that all mainstream Hurdy Gurdy sounds bad, but some of them are used like as a prop. And for example, on the black sails and blah blah blah. So those are not like great examples of how a real, air quotes again, real Hurdy Gurdy is supposed to sound. So yes. Can you tell me the question again, because I forgot?
Yes, I sure can. She was really just asking, when we're looking for a Hurdy Gurdy,
what to look for, right?
Like, what are signs and sounds? What would tell us that it's a bad design, or we shouldn't stay away from that one? You know, what are the things?
Quite a lot of things. I would say, first of all, go to YouTube and go to the Hurdy Gurdy community and look for the list of reputed makers under $2K that we have, and just type the names in YouTube. Listen to a lot of Hurdy Gurdys, and then this is a skill that you will need: critical listening. Okay, and this is something I find is lacking in the world, not only in the Hurdy Gurdy world, but you know, you have to really listen in a certain way. It's not like it just sounds. No, listen to the resonance. Is it deep? Is it sounding very thin? If it sounds very thin, very metallic, that's a sign of maybe it's not a good Hurdy Gurdy. It's a sign that it has a thick bracing or a thick top. Sometimes you don't, if you are experienced, and also, of course, if you're experienced with the making of instruments, you don't need to see a bracing to really, you know, to really tell it's not good, because the instrument is not resonant.
Right.
You know, right? This is, you know, it's like that.
It's hard too, because I mean, my first Hurdy Gurdy came from a builder here in the United States, and I didn't know I didn't know what it was supposed to sound like. And when I played it, to me, since I'd never heard a Hurdy Gurdy, like other than, you know, what I've heard on YouTube and whatnot, to me it sounded okay until, you know, I got one built by Brook, which is a nice Hurdy Gurdy, and it really let me see just what was possible with the Hurdy Gurdy. So I guess my follow-up question to you would be, you know, even with the Brook, I'm a big fan of that Russian guy, Andrei Vinogradov. Yeah, and when I got the Brook, I still couldn't pull off even remotely what he's doing with the Hurdy Gurdy he has. So, you know, there's different levels as well. You know?
Because that's, you know, that his Gurdy is made by Wolfgang.
Yes.
Wolfgang Weichselbaumer, and he's also processing the sound. I think he uses Mainstage, which is a part of Logic,
right,
which is a program. And of course, he has a lot of processing and effects, and he has like his signature sound.
Right.
And this is not simple to achieve, not simple to copy.
Right. So people also need to know that when you're listening to stuff, it might be likely that the people that you're listening to, that's not the raw Hurdy Gurdy sound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. Yes. Yes. Especially if they are hooked up to an amplifier or to pedals. Like there are lots of things that can modify the sound, but well, we were talking about the signs that tell you that the instrument is bad. Not only the sound. Like you can really, of course, it's tricky because for me it's very obvious because I restored Hurdy Gurdys. I attempted to build some of them. You know, so like I saw quite a lot of things. I talked with lots of luthiers, so you know, I'm for me it's very obvious. But I really get that for a beginner, it's not as simple.
Well, you know, and some of the things that popped up in my mind as we were talking is, number one, again talking about my first Hurdy Gurdy, the wheel when I would turn it.
Of course, it's not wobbly. It has
well,
to be very even, very
but it also
true.
You couldn't just, it didn't just flop around. Like, you know, you couldn't, when none of the strings were on, you couldn't do that. And if you can see my other Hurdy Gurdy here, it's like flopping around. Like you would move it and no strings were on and it would just hang there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, totally. I get it, yes.
But even the wheel, you might want to talk about that.
Some good quality Gurdys do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Some of them. So I wouldn't write it down as a bad sign. Okay. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not really.
Well, what do they need to look for in the wheel too? Because I think that's something that people don't pay any attention to.
No, of course, the wheel needs to be true. If the wheel is a bit of side move, 1 millimeter, it works. But especially if it moves up and down,
right?
When you turn, that's a terrible sign. Also, small wheels, like really small wheels. If they are not tekeros, tekero is the Hungarian Hurdy Gurdy. You know, for me it's a sign that the instrument is not going to be good. Then of course the hardware.
Before you go into that, when you say a small wheel, again, we're talking about someone who's never really gotten into one. How will they know it's a small wheel? What's a small wheel?
That's an interesting question.
Like 2 inches, you know? I mean, we're talking...
Fuck Imperial. I don't know.
Oh, Imperial, I got you.
I mean, if you see a wheel like this, now you have to watch the video.
Yes.
This is not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. More things. Hardware. Like the hardware has to really look good. It's a really hard topic to discuss because, like, defining what makes a Hurdy Gurdy bad. It's so obvious, really, for me. It's super obvious. When you see an instrument that it has a bad construction, you go like, okay, this is wrong.
Right.
But then telling you what is wrong, it's difficult to say. For example, the keys, when they are like not properly aligned, it's another thing. For example, I don't really know how to explain this, but the distances between the bridges, it's something you get to know when you see a lot of Hurdy Gurdys.
Yeah. What about, you know, this was something that I looked for when I was more a mandolin player and guitar player, looking to see if you can see inside the Hurdy Gurdy and there's like lots of glue everywhere.
That's a sign. That's a sign of not very precise woodwork. Of course.
Right.
Some of the Gurdys that have that could work if they are well constructed, but it's a sign that the builder is not meticulous. Okay. And so also the same thing with the finishes. Like if the Gurdy has a poor finish or it doesn't have any finish at all, you know, sometimes for me it's like, you didn't put, like you're cutting corners. You know what I mean? So yes, like poor finishes are like another thing I look for.
Right. Well, I mean, the way you're describing it, I can hear what you're saying and kind of seeing a few different Hurdy Gurdys, but you know, for a beginner, it is going to be hard, especially if you've never really seen one before. And I guess I'm talking more about people here in the United States because I'm assuming they're more prevalent in Europe, the UK, and where you're at. So.
Totally. That's why I think it's very important to, practice the critical listening, really. Critical listening is one of the most important skills you have to develop when you are in the market for a hurdy gurdy. Like really, go to one sample, compare to the other one. Like open 2 YouTube tabs and put one, put the other one. What is the difference? Even if they are not playing the same or they are not using the same strings or the same tuning, don't look to the surface. Like look deep. Check the details.
Right.
Like is it resonant? Is it thin? Is the dude that is playing the instrument able to play something?
Yeah.
Like I'm beating my tongue really. But really, if
give us a few episodes and you won't have to bite your tongue anymore. Just give us.
Of course. Eventually, we can talk about specific things. But really, if the maker is like providing you a sound sample and you compare it to another one, it sounds very thin.
Right.
Of course.
Right. Well, that'll bring us to the next question. And this was also one of Crystal's questions. She wanted to know, what are some things that make a modern style hurdy-gurdy different than, say, a classical, these are her words, a classical design?
Yes. I get the point. Yes, it's another topic that is really hard to describe and really obvious. Okay. when you put one next to the other one, right? So I would say go to YouTube, type Patrick Buffard, okay, and listen to that. That's a traditional sound. Or look for Gilles Chavenat. That's a traditional sound. Okay. Then go and type Andrei Vinogradov. That's a more open sound, more deep. Go to Michalina Balist, for example. That's also more modern, round sound, more resonant in the low register, not so nasal, right. More viola style. Go check Wechselbaumer works, Sebastian Hilsman. Those sound very different. Sound like more violin, more viola, more delicate, more resonant. And the other ones are more aggressive, more nasal, more. It's. I'm not saying one is bad and the other one is good. Right. Both of them are really cool, but each one of them has its own place to be. Right. You know.
Well, what's the design?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, what's the design difference? I mean, I notice a lot of the more modern ones have like flat backs, whereas the more lute style back. Is that a major difference, or does that matter? For me, that's not really the difference. Okay. Maybe I would say the tops. The tops are one of the most different things. Like the traditional style hurdy-gurdys have like a thicker top. Okay. And the modern sound ones have like a more thin. Maybe it's 2 millimeters less, but it really makes a difference. Okay. Also, the bracing is different. Like the internal parts of the instrument change. I see. It's not always about the lute back. Of course, almost all the lute backs have this more traditional sound, but and also the flat backs. This is also a thing that I forgot to mention when you asked me about the what makes a gurdy. Right. This is another thing. Flat tops. If you see a totally flat top, which is hard to see also from pictures, good tops are always curved. It's a slightly curved, but it's also a good point. Okay. Like really flat tops are not good, and also flat backs, even if they are flat, they have a slightly curve, and this helps to avoid the stationary waves inside of the instrument, and the curved tops also help to the dog to respond. Better. Okay, so when they're looking at it, the top's completely flat, not necessarily the best. There's always a slight arch in the top. Exactly. It's another thing that is very difficult to see from a beginner's perspective, and from an experienced player or maker or trainee, luthier trainee like me, it's very obvious. Like you see a flat top, and you go right.
Oh, bye-bye.
That wasn't a hurdy-gurdy, was it?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, the next question, this is the final one from Crystal, I think. She's talking about building a hurdy-gurdy, which, we talked a lot about in that first episode. Where did it go? Okay. So she's working on her hurdy-gurdy. She's been thinking about this. What are some challenges to consider for certain design features? For example, is it good to have a adjustable versus non-adjustable bridge, different kinds of tangents, friction pegs versus machine tuners? I think she's asking, what's the what are all these little parts, and are there ones that are better than others?
Of course. On the hurdy-gurdy, I tell you, follow the instructions. Like, don't experiment too much, because that instrument is really engineered to work with what it has, right?
Okay.
And I know there are some people on the builders group, like David Jacobs and those guys that are experimenting with new parts and trying to make them better and so on. But they are experienced people,
Right.
So when you're a novice, maybe don't experiment that much. Build your first one, make it sound more or less good, and just play and study. But
Right.
For example, when you're in the market for searching for an instrument, these are interesting questions, of course.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I would prefer gear tuners instead of wooden pegs, just because they are easier to tune, easier to turn. They will not get sticky, and you will have less problems. Also, I say to you that there are many very beautiful and very good instruments with wooden pegs. Okay,
The friction pegs.
Friction pegs, yes,
Yeah.
sorry. But they have to be really well made in order to work. If they are a bit then it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I say this is also another very complicated thing to tell if you are a beginner. But maybe ask an experienced player. Try an instrument before buying, please.
Well, I was wondering, why, personally, when I think about it, and it might be just because I've had experience with other musical instruments, it seems, why wouldn't you want a non-adjustable bridge, or why wouldn't you want machine tuners? To me, it makes sense that that's what you would want.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course, the adjustable bridges. You can shim with paper. It's not a real problem if you don't have it. And also, as I said with the pegs, I say the same with the bridge. If the bridge has a good adjustable bridge, I prefer the adjustable bridge.
Right.
If the instrument has a bad adjustable bridge, I prefer a regular bridge, and I do my thing with the paper.
Right.
Some of them are really hard to turn because the thread is this is hard to explain with my English. Can you describe this, Ryan?
Turning, cranking.
Well, the thread of the adjustable part goes directly into wood.
Right.
And that makes it hard to turn.
Right.
And I don't like it, especially if the adjustable thing, the thumb wheels are small, plus the thread is coming into wood. For me, it's not my thing.
Yes.
Either I need a big thumb wheel and the thread is going to wood, or eventually a perfect solution for me is a regular thumb wheel and the thread is going into metal or brass,
right.
Something that makes it smoother and very easy to turn. Because sometimes you want to to give it a little just a little turn to go nothing up, right? Like a fraction of a millimeter.
Right.
And so I would like to have I don't have an adjustable bridge here. You can see it. If you watch the video, you can see the papers. I have a lot of papers on my bridge, but it's not a thing that I don't think it's particularly bad.
Right.
To have a regular bridge.
What
And
about?
also the same thing with the tangents. Of course, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, the tangents. I mean, some people have, metal tangents and some people have wood. I mean, is that just personal preference then?
For me, it depends on your level
Okay.
and on the experience you have adjusting. For example, the Weichselbaumer, the typical Weichselbaumer design on the tangents, which is this kind of rectangle, like metallic rectangle with a post.
Mm-hmm.
I found it particularly hard to adjust because you have this option of moving the tangent on this axis. Which one is this axis? X?
That is the
I don't know.
horizontal axis.
Back and forth, okay?
Back and forth, yeah.
Far to you, close to you. Right. You have this option, which is very good to make all the tangents hit the string at the same time.
Right.
And then you also have the tilt, right or left, which is messing around with your intonation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are really, if you are an experienced player and you know how to adjust the tangents, it's going to be great because you have more possibilities. If you are a beginner, you don't really know how to adjust the tangents, it's going to make your life a little bit harder. Because if you want to make a precise adjustment and you want to go to one side, you will lose the other axis. So
that's what the metal tangents you're talking about.
That's with the typical Weichselbaumer tangents.
Gotcha.
For example, this one, I'll show you. This is a design by Cedo Garcia, which I really like. Really like. Can you see that?
I can see them, yeah.
It's like a twisted wire. Okay, and this is really cool because you have, in my opinion, it's one of my favorite designs because you have the best of both worlds. You have the metal tangents, so they went wear out with a lot of playing, and they have a screw, so you can move left and right and just lock it into place. And then as it is wired, you can just bend it to you or far. And this is an adjustment that you will not do a lot of times. So you just bend the wire a little bit to you or a little bit far from you, and you have it. Mm-hmm. So you don't have this problem of moving the axis that you don't want.
Right.
So this is for metal tangent. Of course, this is a personal opinion. I'm not the expert. Just a personal opinion. And I also like the wooden tangents. I like them.
But they don't have as much move. I mean, I think I've got one here.
Show it.
So I'll try to see if I can show it. So the wood, they don't.
Those are classical.
That's
they don't have a screw.
Right. Well, no, these have a screw. I got a little nut in there. But you're right, because I was trying to adjust my upper G, if I can point to it here, because but when I got it just right, then it wasn't quite touching the string exactly how I wanted it. So anyway, I can see how a metal tangent would have been very helpful.
Yes, in that case, yes. Of course, there are different types also of wooden tangents. Some of them have a screw, some of them don't.
And the ones without screws, you just kind of gotta tweak them.
Yes, for example, it's very easy if you are particularly picky with the just intonation and then for example you are playing a tune in D and you want to move that E a little bit to lower the pitch and have the perfect interval. So for experienced players, anything is good. For beginners, anything is good if you learn how to control. And of course, as I said with the pegs, as I said with the what did I say? With the bridges, I tell you the same. If the tangents are well made, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If they are poorly made, you're fucked up.
Yeah, well, you find that out through experience, I suppose. Good. Well, and I just noticed that as I was going through these questions, I don't think I mentioned it, so I'm going to have to go back in time and fix this. This part of the podcast is supposed to be called "What the Crank."
Okay.
Did I say that?
No.
I didn't say it. Okay, so this part of the podcast is called "What the Crank" because we're talking about technical things. We've got a few more technical issues here. The next one, I'm curious about myself. On this Hurdy Gurdy, I have capos all over the place.
Okay.
I've got capos for the trumpet, capos for the drones, and they're asking, what are the challenges, benefits, or pitfalls of adding them to a Hurdy Gurdy? I think you should have them, but
yes.
What do you think?
No, totally, yes. At least C to D capos on both sides. For me, it's mandatory because you can ask any of my students. We are changing from C to D all the time, and it's a pity if you have to retune back and tune to C, retune to D. And with the capos, it's very simple. You just click, and it goes up and down.
Right. So if you can get them.
Yeah, of course. And they are not especially expensive. Like what is going to cost you 100 euros, both of them, or 120 if you want it fitted from your favorite maker. Right. I don't know. Special. And what about fitting them? If you have the instrument and you don't order it, you didn't order it with capos. Some makers use harp levers.
Right.
And those made by Loveland harp levers are very famous in the Hurdy Gurdy world. And if you're in Europe, it's like they are really readily available from Thomann. So yeah, I don't know in the States. Well, you have them. Like Loveland is an American company.
Right.
So you can write them. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, capos. Then there's really no pitfalls. Just get them, and then then you can play in different keys, like you're saying. I mean, again, I try to play Irish music a lot, and I have to play in at least 4 or 5 different keys, which you can't do if you don't have.
It's a yes. Sometimes I see. Okay, this is also worth having a little talk about it. I sometimes see beginners that really want the instrument with lots of extras, like 1,000 strings, not 1,000, but 4 melody strings, 3 drones, 3 trumpets, with 3 capos on each one of the keys. Maybe this is not, maybe it's not the thing, because you're getting an instrument that it will be harder to control.
Right.
This is a thing that can drive you crazy, really. And about the capos that we are talking about, if you put more than 1 capo on the same string, sometimes it works, but sometimes the second capo it makes the dog sound a bit weak.
Okay.
Sometimes.
So usually 1 capo per string is kind of what you want to do.
Yes. I ordered my new ELZ Gurdy that I will be getting this week with 2 capos on the C string, but just because the E, I use it I don't use it at all. I use it sometimes for some specific tunes that I don't really play the dog there. So yeah.
Right. So it might also be useful to know what kind of music you want to play, though, right? I mean.
Yes, but. Yeah. Normally, C to D, you will play all the time. C to D. I don't care what you are playing. Like traditional C D, contemporary C D, because the instrument is, of course, when you are tuned to GC, you are doing it all the time. Melody string in G, then drones and trumpets C D. Also G, it's very useful. And if you like Middle East repertoire, get the capo from G to D. Sorry, from G to A.
G to A, okay.
Okay, because we play quite a lot in A. Also medieval, really medieval pieces play a lot of A Aeolian.
Okay.
And you can talk about Irish, a lot of E minor, right?
Right. E minor, A minor, G, D. There's a couple tunes that are even like F sharp minor, which is, I got to retune for that because I don't have a good capo for that just yet. So, but yeah.
It's hard. I find it hard to play in E minor on the
Really?
Hurdy Gurdy.
Why?
Yes, I do. I don't know. It feels odd to me when I play E minor. I'm like, I'm out of my comfort zone. Really.
I just don't think about it. I just try to. I just tune the capos to E minor, and then I just try to play the tune, and I don't let my mind go there. But when we were talking about different time signatures, that was one other thing that I did as well. Since not being a really good professional musician, if I didn't think about that it was in a different time signature, I could play it. But the moment I started trying to think in my mind, okay, 11/8, it's this. It's like it made me spaz out, and I couldn't do it right.
Well, if you can follow the accents, then it's perfect.
Yeah. Right. Well, another question, and that one, the one about the cables, is from Brian, but the next one's from Steve Weinert. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He asks, what should be in a hurdy-gurdy player's kit? So what should a hurdy player have on hand in their box?
Lots of things, actually. I think Sona and Jimmy made a video about this. It's worth having a look. Okay.
Yes, and their hurdy-gurdy channels. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly either. Folkskelet, Folkskelet, but their video was "What is in our hurdy-gurdy bag?"
Yeah, just type that into YouTube and it will pop up.
Yeah.
Also, Patty made another video about the hurdy-gurdy kit. You have to. Yeah, so there are plenty of videos talking about this, but I'm a mess because I always forget my cotton, I always forget my rosin, I always forget everything. But if I were like a really tidy person, I would have, of course, cotton, multiple kinds of cotton, if you ask me, like natural cotton, viscose, blends of different fibers, because sometimes they work better in some strings. This is a thing that you have to experiment. Don't ask me.
Okay.
Rosin, of course, cake rosin, they call it, a block. Liquid rosin, if you can. It's worth having it to lock the cottons in place. Or if you have a plastic wheel, plastic or polymer or ceramic, anything that is not wood, it's also nice. I also use it in my wooden wheel without problems, but some makers are concerned that the abrasive, it's abrasive, no, it's the alcohols and
the solvent,
the acetals, dissolvents, exactly.
The solvent, yeah.
Sometimes some makers are concerned about raising the grain of the wheels. So consult your maker about the liquid rosin. What else? Spare dogs, please.
Okay.
Have spare dogs.
Okay.
Because sometimes they like to fly. You're playing and sometimes you have the dogs getting inside of the instrument, and you're like, you shake the instrument on top of your head, like, please come out. And if you have one ready available in your kit, just you put it there, and then you will in your home you can take it out. Right. This happened to me quite a lot of times when I was going to start a show. So the dog really. And I think I also saw a video of Johannes Gevorkian from Symbio doing this, like trying to get the dog out.
Yeah.
More things. Shrinking tube. I like to have it. Spare strings. Right. Really, if you're a professional or not a professional, but someone that plays really in shows, you don't want a drone to snap. And it can happen. So yeah, I have spare strings. Yes.
With the spare strings, I was curious about that myself, because with guitar strings, playing guitar, I could just have those in my case forever. And I remember maybe it was just the gut strings I heard this about. You can't really just leave them sit for a long time, right? Or did I have false information there?
Really, I don't know because
Okay.
I don't use gut at all.
Okay.
Because I used to use gut, but on one of my first tours with the band I used to play around Germany on the medieval markets and so, we would be playing at 8 at night, and the humidity just raised, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously the gut strings went like,
Right.
and I was like, fuck. Retune up, and the gut string was like, no.
Just kept going.
Yes, I want to go down. And from that days, I started experimenting with synthetic trumpets. Nylon is shit. So
Okay. No nylon.
Yeah, not nylon.
Okay.
Obviously, again, personal opinion. I'm not the expert, you know.
You're the only expert we have right now. So
I I'm an experienced player. I'm not the expert that you have to follow, right? So obviously, try your own. But in my opinion and in my perspective, nylon is shit. I don't like it.
Right.
I use fluorocarbon.
Okay.
And this you can get it from fishing line, just fishing line.
Okay.
It works nice. And also what I have is third strings from classical guitar
Okay.
that are made out of fluorocarbon, of course, because most of the time they are nylon.
Yes.
But you have some brands that they use fluorocarbon, like Savares Alliance.
And that's the G string from the guitar? Is that what you're... or are you going the other direction?
Re, sol, yes, G.
The G, okay. Gotcha.
It's a 0.84 millimeters, I think, on the Savares. And it works great for C. And in my instrument, it also works for G.
Okay.
For G, I would like to have a thicker string, like 1.20 millimeters or something like that. But it broke. And I had this one, I fitted it, and it works. At least in my instrument. I'm not telling you it's going to work in your instrument. That's
right. Right.
Just
and then I guess
they're cheap. They're really cheap. Sorry.
And I guess if they've got the sympathetic strings, they're going to need one of those harp tuning. Is it a harp wrench you use for sympathetic strings?
Okay, this depends on the maker because sometimes you have hammered pins like this one. This one has hammered pins. You want to see it?
Yeah.
You see them there?
Let's see. Keep talking because
yes, it's.
Yes, I see them.
There you have them, and this I have a special wrench, tourne-gauche. I think it's called in in French, which is the tool that you use to tune the friction pegs, and also on the other side. Of this wrench, you have the special hole to put it there on the hammer pins. But of course, times change, and you have more and more makers that are quitting using the hammer pins, and they are starting to use mandolin tuners or also fifth banjo pegs.
Okay.
And this makes your life a lot easier because if you get sympathetic strings, make sure you are in tune because it's something that if you are lazy, you're not going to tune them, and then it's like not having them, you know, because
they only work. Yeah,
they only work like being really perfectly in tune. So that's why I really like these new makers that are using like Cesar Loureiro or ELZ. They use this, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, one thing I was reading, which I know we're going to talk about here in our next section, I was reading that Doreen Musket book on the Hurdy Gurdy, and she talked about the sympathetic strings, but the way she talked about them was the reason they're there is so that you can pluck them and then tune your Hurdy Gurdy to them. So it's almost as if they were supposed to be like the thing that allowed you to stay in tune versus the way we might use them now to give them that extra shimmer. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was reading in her book. So
I don't know. Opinions, I don't know. I don't say it like that, but
yeah, I don't either. That was the first time I read it, so I thought, well, that was
I don't know. It's possible. Really, I never thought it that way. I just think it helps the instrument. It's like having a natural river engaged and on board.
Right.
And nothing else, at least in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's been my experience too. Well, good. Anything else you would have in your kit before we move into our next section?
Yes, pliers. And how do you call the small pliers, like the precision?
Needle nose?
I don't know. I don't know the word in English.
Small pointy ones?
Yes, something like that. It's like the ones... No, the ones that they are used for surgery, you know, like really small ones.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but you asked me too quick. I know what you mean.
Well, I think everybody will know the ones that are used for precision work, like getting small pieces, or those ones. I have them. I also carry, when I go to concerts and I'm prepared. I carry do you call it bisturi also in English?
What is it?
It's like a precision knife. Also, the thing that the surgeons use.
A scalpel.
A scalpel.
Yeah.
To make notches in some of the breeches if I needed to, or to I don't know. But I carry it. Also, I carry, and this is quite nice because shit happens. It can happen to you. Again, I don't know the word, so you have to help me a little bit. You know those pastes that are two components, and you mix them together, and they harden? I am not hearing you, Ryan. I lost your microphone.
There we are. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly what they are, but I don't remember the name of those either.
Okay, but obviously you all know it. It's like this two-component paste, or whatever you call it, that you mix together and it hardens.
So it's like a glue or an epoxy. Is that what you mean? Does that sound? No.
It has the texture of blue tack.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh, okay. It's like a plastiline. It's like something like that. Two components. You mix them together. You put them somewhere, and they harden. Okay. They are just two bars that are used to fix things. And I use these sometimes to fill the notches on the bridges and cut them out again if I need.
Okay.
Okay. So if I went too deep, then I use this to reset the bridge notch, and it helps. It works. At least in my experience. Again, I don't know how people uses it. And I think I have also spare tangents, spare screws. I don't know. I carry lots of things. Go check those videos from Sona, Jimmy, and Patty.
Really. Yeah, I'll put those in the show notes as well, so people can check those out.
Nice.
All right. Well, we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to listen to a recording by the builder who made my instrument, Neil Brook. He was also an avid fan of Irish music, so we're going to hear some tracks by him, and we're also going to close out the show once we get there with another metal version of an Irish song called Morrison's Jig by Michelina. So we're taking a little bit of an Irish route. So let's see how this goes. Let's see what Neil has for us.
Let's see.
right, so we just got done listening to Neil Brook playing two slip jigs, Drops of Brandy and the Fox Hunters, and that was off of his recording Rambles in the Park. So if you want to look that up, I believe he's got it for free. So just Google Neil Brook and Rambles in the Park, and it's got all these Irish tunes that he plays on the Hurdy Gurdy.
It's nice, very nice.
Yeah. And you asked me on a little break, what is a slip jig?
I know the term, but I'm not really familiar with the rhythm. So maybe you can explain it.
I'll do my best, because this is again one of those kind of things where it's in 9/8, and I never really thought about what it was. I just heard it played enough that I just kept trying to play it. So I looked it up on Wikipedia.
It's a very good source.
Yes. And so Wikipedia describes, anyway, it's in 9/8, which means you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's one bar. At least that's how I look at it. But according to Wikipedia, it refers to a style of Irish music and the Irish dance, which is 9/8, with accents on the 5 and the 9 beats. And then it goes on to say 2 pairs of crotchet quaver, followed by a dotted crotchet note. Or is that crochet? Am I saying it right? Is it a crotchet or is it a crochet?
I don't know. Depends on your language. Let's say 8th note.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you can tell my hillbilly upbringing really comes out sometimes. But anyway, an 8th note with the accent on the 5 and the 9.
Okay, accentuation on 9 and 5, and they are grouping them in groups of 3.
Yeah, so it's 9/8.
So 1, 2, 3. Well. This is also interesting because I never think of 9/8 as groups of 3. I always say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let me count.
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. This is 9/8 for most of the Middle Eastern music.
So you're doing 1, 2, 1, 2. You're doing like 6, except 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3 at the end. 3
groups of 2s and 1 group of 3 at the end.
Right.
Yes. So as you can see there, as we said earlier, like depending on the tradition you are,
right,
or depending on the country the music is, you would group differently, even if you have a name. So yeah.
Well, what's interesting now that I'm learning all of this, what's interesting is I have learned a few slip jigs on the Hurdy Gurdy, and I'm not very good at the trompette yet, but I found myself as I was playing naturally accenting on that 5 and the 9. But I did not know that I was supposed to do that, at least mentally, until I read this here. So it's kind of interesting that popped out, because in my mind when I read it on the sheet of paper, I was just doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which may be why it came out kind of lame sometimes.
And could you sing the rhythm?
Oh, could I sing the rhythm? No, I'm not much of a singer. Well, I might have one. Let me see if I can just play it real quick.
Yes, I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Because I think there was one I was working on, and now, of course, I can't find my strap, so I'm going to try to do it while holding it.
Okay.
Nope, that's not going to work. Let's see. So something like that.
Okay.
Did that sound like it was in 9/8? I'm hoping that was a slip jig.
Yes. So just let me write that down because I want to learn it. So you say 3 groups of 3, and the accent is on 5 and 9.
And 9, and that's according to Wikipedia.
So okay, we'll look it up.
Okay, you look it up.
Yes. Interesting.
Yeah, hopefully what I just played was it's a fiddler, Hardyman the Fiddler, which I think is also a slip jig.
It's nice. Now I made a little diagram, and I understand why they call it a slip jig. I think don't kill me, please,
No.
people that are really into this kind of music, but it makes sense for me because the first group of 3 accentuates in the 1, the second group of 3 accentuates in the 2, and the third group of 3 accentuates in the 3. So it's like look, I made this little shitty diagram. Can you see it?
I can see that.
Like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
It could be because of that. I don't know. You tell us in the comments.
Well, and that makes sense now that I'm thinking about. Now, to be honest, I'm proud. I've been playing Irish music for 15 years, and you'd think I would know this. But what I've always found fun about slip jigs is they always seem to loop back on themselves.
Exactly. Yes, because they go back to the first group of 3, which has the accent of the 1.
Yeah, so that just gave me a whole new love for slip jigs.
Okay, I don't know. I don't think I ever played one of them, but
well, you should start.
Yes, it's going to be nice. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we're moving into another portion of our segment here, which was really supposed to be at the beginning, but we're working this out. So a lot of these questions are really come from the idea of being a beginner player. And the first one again from Inez, she's asking, what approach would you suggest for learning to play? Would you focus on songs that you love and know? Would you focus on techniques, sticking to books, which books are good? So she kind of wants to know how would you approach this to really get into it?
It's a question that we could be talking 1 hour about this. Really.
Well, let's try to do like 8 minutes.
Okay, so okay, where to start? Get a teacher. Really, we are I think we have 6 or 7 online teachers now, like Ron, Quentin, Christian, me, and some others that I forgot. But Steve Tyler is also teaching.
Yes.
Really, get a teacher. It's the best thing, because if you learn alone, sometimes you will be developing in Spanish we call it literally vices. like when you develop a bad posture or a bad way of doing the fingering of the keys. You get used to bad things, and then you keep going, doing that. So you will have errors in your playing, even if you play good. Okay, so this is my first advice: get a teacher, please. If you can, you have the time, 1 hour a week, or one every 2 weeks, really. Talk to these guys. I told you, type on the Hurdy Gurdy community, teachers, and we have a post with all of them listed there. Right. So this is my first advice: get a teacher. Second thing, if you you're learning by yourself with books or other things, I really suggest starting with technique, because if you cannot play a scale, you cannot play a tune. Sadly, so yeah, I'm a fan of technique. So I always, because from my perspective, all of the instruments work out the muscular memory all the time, and yes, basically you have to teach your hand where to go. You have to teach your hand the language that your song or tune is going to speak. So that's why I'm very into learning technique, learning the modes, getting to know songs in each one of the modes. Maybe we will talk about the modes on the next podcast, because this is right. A lot of things with the modal concept, with the modal music. But this we will explain in the next one. So yes, basically yes. Obviously, if you really want to play some tunes that you like, just go to Google, find violin sheet music for that tune, or piano, something that you can play on the Gurdy, and try out.
Right.
It's not bad to try out, of course. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's better, I think someone asked this question on the Hurdy Gurdy community, aside from this, and they were saying that the tunes in the book that she was using, she didn't really enjoy. And I understand that, but when I first started playing guitar, I wanted to play Stairway to Heaven and Sweet Child of Mine, but I spent a lot of time playing Mary Had a Little Lamb, and those types of things. So I think you gotta do some of that, right? Just to kind of get your fingers working.
Look, I don't necessarily agree.
Okay.
Really, because, and I had this on the other instruments that I play, right? On piano, on guitar, because it happened to me. Like, I didn't want to play Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Right.
It felt to me like I was a little kid learning, and not really, but that's why I tell you, you people, to get a teacher, because your teacher will probably give you tunes that don't sound shitty, that sound interesting, but they are easy enough for you to understand and to play. Right. And you are not going to play Old MacDonald, Right. And I don't know. There are some very simple medieval tunes, some cantigas, very fun, very very beautiful. Some Hungarian tunes like the Kiksi Baggio, for example. Like we have like lots of very easy tunes, and they're very fun to play. But they are not also only very fun to play, but they have small challenges for you. And if your teacher is a good teacher, he will give you small challenges on each one of the songs he or she gives you to play. And maybe you don't notice, but he's challenging you to get those technical problems sorted out inside of each one of the pieces, even if the piece is super easy to play.
Right. Well, and one of the follow-up questions to that, from Jacob, he talks about books and courses that are considered solid but not outdated. So I guess he's asking about books and but my question with that, just as an add-on, is whether they're outdated or not. I mean, are they outdated just because music is different now, or are they outdated just I didn't get the outdated part of it, because like the Dorian Muscat book, sure, it's outdated, so kind of, maybe. But when I was going through the exercises, I thought to myself, it seems like these are useful. So it didn't seem outdated to me.
They are useful, but nowadays, maybe we have new approaches to the teaching of the instrument. That's the outdated part. Maybe.
I see.
Maybe. I'm not saying it's really outdated, but it depends on your perspective. It depends on how you like to teach and how you like to learn. It's obviously it's a good book for the foundations, right, of the Hurdy Gurdy. So yeah, definitely get it. It's cheap. Come on.
Well, it wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheap for me. I could only find it on Amazon for like $50, and there was only two. There was only two of them left. So.
Oh my God.
So I don't know.
I don't know. If you can find it cheap, then go find it and go buy it. Then, for example, I have this book. This book is amazing. I am not very famous. I don't know why. It's by Marc Bernard, French.
Marc Bernard, yeah.
Yes. And the title is huge. Précise de coups de poignette de basse pour Veille à vous. Sorry for my French, but it's huge. And it's not a method, but it's a book that has all the diagrams. Sorry, I will show you some. All the diagrams of all the coups. You see, Ryan, here.
Yeah, I can see that.
You have 3 regular. Then he has here the deconstruction of the coup. 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, etc., etc., etc. Also the semi-relâché coups are here. It's very useful. I love it. The fours.
Is this what you use mainly to teach when you do your online work, or when you work with students?
Yes, I advise all my students to get this book, because it's really useful. And it's not really a method, but it's just a diagram book, to see the pictures of all the coups and all the positions, and to start getting them into your brain. Right. I find it really useful. Also, this book by, I have to read the name, sorry, Philippe de Strem. This book that is in 3 different languages, and it's called the Hurdy Gurdy. Well, Drehleier, La Veille, the Hurdy Gurdy, adjustment and maintenance. This is the Bible of the adjustment. So go get it if you can. It's really cool. Obviously, there are like tons of different methods. Markegea has a method. Leubner has another method. You have these old French methods also that you can find online.
Right.
It's full of things. And also, of course, you can join my new course.
That's right. That's right. Is that up yet, or are you still working on it?
Not yet. I'm slow. Fuck.
That's all right. Well, so with these kind of methods, until yours is up and running, is it really just a matter of taste, or is there any way that a person should pick one and try to go with it?
These ones that we talked about are just covering different.
I see.
Different matters. The Musket method is more like a beginner's method. It's going to guide you through the basics to some middle kind of thing. So it's if you plan to work alone, it's good that you have at least some of the basics covered there.
Right.
Then you have the other one, the Hurdy Gurdy adjustment and maintenance, the Bible of the adjustment, only adjustment. And I think some construction also. Right. And you also have this one that is just diagrams to know what are you drawing, what lines do you have to draw on your crank. So yes, there are plenty of different methods. Eventually get all of them. But well,
yeah. Well, the next question, there's only a few more left, but the next one, I kind of like. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self who has just started playing the Hurdy Gurdy, what would it be?
Okay. I think don't quit your lessons because I started learning with Abel Garcia, who is a player from Valencia, which is a part of Spain. And I started hardcore, because I really got obsessed with the instrument. I had two lessons, 2 2-hour lessons a week with him, very hardcore, I was studying like really, really hard. And then I had some tour or something that made me stop taking the lessons, and I got to a level that where I was really comfortable, and I kept playing, and then I started teaching, and the thing is that my level kept the same in the same place as where I stopped the lessons, because I at least me, I needed someone to push me, like really, okay, have this challenge, have this tune, because you lose sometimes when you don't have someone that is giving you tunes, that is giving you challenges, is giving you exercises, you get lazy and you don't know where to go, what to play. And you see yourself, well, I was a street musician for some years also, and you see yourself playing the same repertoire over and over and over and over. And I got to a point that, I had like a crisis. Like, okay, why 3 years have passed and you play the same level? Something is wrong. At least for me, if you really want to get to a professional level, I think you always need to keep pushing yourself up. Otherwise, you get to this comfort zone and you get lazy there. And so this would be my advice to myself. Yeah. Don't waste those 3 years doing nothing or doing the same shit over and over and over.
Well, that's that's exactly what I was thinking. No, that's good. And one more question here. I think there's one more. Oh yeah. So this is an interesting one because due to the usually long wait list getting a hurdy-gurdy, are there any exercises, training, or readings that you can do while waiting? And I couldn't think of anything because the hurdy-gurdy seems like such a different kind of instrument. So what do you think about that?
Okay, it's
Like,
interesting.
if you don't have one and you're waiting,
No,
what do you do?
it's very interesting. I could give you quite a lot of exercises to do without the Hurdy Gurdy. I would have to think a little bit about them.
Huh.
But I would tell you it would be mostly coordination between hands. Doing something here and something different on the other hand. Maybe we can start the next podcast with some exercises like this. You could also, for example, Yes, I could imagine a beginner like playing a melodica. Do you know this instrument, the melodica?
Yeah, the melodica. It's like you blow in it, but it's also got a key.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, it has some keys and a hose where you blow and makes a sound, and you have this hand free. So maybe you could try to use a melodica with tapping with this hand on the table or something as you know, to start creating dissociation patterns in your brain. Yeah?
That's a good idea.
Maybe. Okay, let me buy a melodica. Okay, this week.
Okay.
I will get one, and next week on next podcast we can think about something. Let me think about something, and I will write the exercises. Okay.
And maybe you could learn a slip jig on it.
Maybe.
All right. Well, before we go, there's one last question, and this is a very important one. This was put forth by Samuel Palmer. As you know, is a very well-known, venerated hurdy-gurdy player, and his question is, "Are you kidding me?"
No.
Okay. Good.
I love Sam Palmer's work, really. He's very cool.
Well, now
we have to get him. We have to get him here.
I've been told that by many people, so we're going to stick him on the list and see if we can pull that off. Who I really want to get is just right now. Have you heard Steve Tyler's latest album?
Yes, and he's my teacher now.
Oh,
I got some lessons with him, and yeah, let's see how it turns.
Yeah, that album, I listened to it. I went on a drive the other day, and I was talking to him about getting him on the podcast, and he said, "Sure, you can feature some of my music." And he let me. I listened to this album, and I was just. It didn't sound like anything I had heard before. It really blew my mind.
I can say he's one of my top 5 players, if not the top 3. I don't know. He's there, really.
And well, you've heard the album. I mean, like I said, I'm not super widely schooled in the hurdy-gurdy yet, but I haven't heard anything else like that. Is that like just his own creativity coming out there, or is there a particular style there I'm just not aware of at the moment?
Let's ask him.
No, we'll do that. All right. Well, it was good. It was good having you, Sergio, and I look forward to our next time.
Okay.
Yes, and we're going out today with Michelina's take on an Irish tune, which I believe is just a jig, but pretty awesome with her some metal work. So we'll see how it goes. All right.
Nice.
Take care.